Namasarvebhyaha. Welcome back to the course on Fundamentals of Asiddhatva in Praninian Grammar, presented by Vyoma Samskrita Pathashala. This is the seventh session of the course, and today we will be discussing an exception to Purvatra Siddham, which is the Utsarga Apavada Bhava. येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्. So far we have studied the sutra Purvatra Siddham, the two parts to its meaning. So Sapada Saptadhyayim Prati Tripadya Siddha and Tripadyam api Purvam Prati Param Shastram Asiddham Syat. We also saw many examples to Purvatra Siddham. Right? So hopefully by now it should be clear on how Purvatra Siddham operates. Now in the next few sessions, we are going to see what are the exceptions. Purvatra Siddham is not absolute. That is, just because a sutra is in the Tripadi or two sutras are in the Tripadi, it does not mean that Asiddhatva will always operate. So there are quite a few cases where Asiddhatva is not operating. It can either be overruled by other sutras or by the strength of the one of the sutras itself. So we will see those exceptions one by one with a few examples. So the first and the most important exception to Purvatra Siddham is the Utsarga Apavada Bhava. Hopefully you should be familiar with the term Utsarga and Apavada. They are very, very important terms in Vyakarana. Utsarga or Samanya Sutram is a general rule, a wider or a broader rule, whereas an Apavada is an exception, a rule which is more narrow or more restricted. So the domain of the Apavada Sutra is usually nested within the domain of the Utsarga. So when there is a clash between Utsarga and Apavada, the Apavada will always take precedence. So Apavada Sutram Balavat Para Nitya Antaranga Apavadanam Uttarottaram Baliyaha is a paribhasha. So Apavada Sutra is actually the strongest kind of sutra in Vyakarana. So if it is an Apavada, it has to overrule all other considerations, and by the same strength it also overrules the Asiddhatva by Purvatra Siddham. So we will see one example, Hodhaha and Nahodhaha. So Hodhaha is 8 to 31, Nahodhaha is 8 to 34. As we can see, both of them are within the Tripadi. What does Hodhaha say? Hodhaha says Hakarasya Dhakaradeshaha bhavati Jhali padante cha. So at padanta or when followed by a jhal letter, Hakara is replaced by Dhakara is Hodhaha. So a common example is Lih Bhyam. Lih is a dhatu. We get a quip pratyaya because of which it becomes a pratipadika. So hakarantaha shabdaha lih. Bhyam pratyaye pare होढः इत्यनेन ढकारादेशः भवति लिढ भ्याम. After that there is jashtva by jhalanjashonte where the form becomes lidbhyam. Now there is a sutra, three sutras later, he says nahodhaha nah dhatoho hakarasya dhakaradeshah syat jhalipadante cha. As you can see, this is a subset of hodhaha. So hodhaha in general applies to any uh, you know any dhatu with a hakara at the end. It need not even be a dhatu, but hakara at the end followed by jhal or padanta, we have dhatva. Whereas a specific dhatu, nah, when it is followed by jhal or padanta, there is dhakara desha. Okay, so upanah is a shabda. Upanah bhyam. So there is dhakara, so it becomes upanadh bhyam, and then jhalanjashonte to get upanadbhyam. Now, if we go to Purvatra Siddham, 8 to 34, that is Nahodhaha, which is an direct apavada to Hodhaha, is Asiddha to Hodhaha. If Hodhaha does not recognize Nahodhaha, it says, okay, I am the last sutra, so I am going to operate everywhere. So it will not leave Upanahubhyam and it will apply even there. So there would be Dhakaradesha everywhere, and then 8 to 34 would become superfluous. That is, it is pointless. It doesn't have any place where it can operate. So wherever the conditions for Nahodhaha are satisfied, even before Nahodhaha, Hodhaha would have converted the Hakara to Dhakara. So there is no longer the Hakara, and therefore Nahodhaha cannot apply anywhere. This is what we call Vaiyarthya. That is a sutra which has no purpose, which does not serve any uh, operation at all. And in Vyakarana, Vaiyarthya is not accepted at all. So, by the very definition of a sutra, if it doesn't serve a purpose, it shouldn't be there. It's as simple as that. So, Sutra Samarthyat, because the sutra is there, Niravakasha, and it doesn't have a way to operate. So, we say Niravakashatvam Apavadasya Bijam. So, it does not have a place to operate which is not already occupied by Hodhaha. Therefore, forcibly the Apavada Sutra will overrule the Utsarga Sutra. Therefore, between an Utsarga and Apavada, there is no Asiddhatva. Hodhaha will recognize all its Apavadas and give way. Okay, anything which is directly an Apavada will not be Asiddha. So, even though Nahodhaha is placed later in the Tripadi, it is not Asiddha. Okay, so it's not that the Apavada and the Utsarga should be next to each other or close. So even when they are situated far apart, say for example with Jhalanjashonte and Sasajusho Ruhu. So very popular sutras, both of them, and very frequently applied. So Jhalanjashonte says Padante Jhalam Jashtvam Bhavati. Whereas Sasajushoruhu says Padante Sakarasya Rutvam Bhavati. So example for Jashtva is say Shash. So Shakara is converted to Dakara by Jashtva. Whereas Ramas, Sakara is converted to Ru by Sasajushoruhu, which further gets converted to Visarga by Kharavasanayor Visarjaniyaha to get Ramaha. Now, if you see Padante Jhal and Padante Sakara, Sakara is also Jhal, like Shakara. So, Shakara gets Dakara, Sakara can also get Jashtva to get Dakara. It is a Dantya, right? So, Padanta Sakara is a subset of Padanta Jhal. So, Jhalanjashonte is Utsarga and Sasajushoruhu, the Padanta Sakarasya Rutvam, is an Apavada to Jhalanjashonte. So, if Sasajushoruhu is Asiddha, then we would have to apply Jashtva everywhere and you cannot do Rutva anywhere. So, Rutva would become Vyartha. So, this Niravakashatvam Apavadasya Bijam. Niravakasha, Avakasha is a space. So, if any sutra does not have a space for itself, which is free from the attack of Utsarga Sutras, then it will assert itself as the Apavada and it will gain that power to overrule all Utsargas. Right? So Apavada Sutram Anyat Sarvam Badhate. It can overrule everything, including Asiddhatva. So Tripadyam api Utsargam prati Apavadasya Asiddhatvam nasti. An Apavada Sutra is not Asiddha to Utsarga, even if it is placed later in the Tripadi. Okay. So this is one of the most important apavadas or exceptions to Purvatra Siddham. Purvatra Siddham does not operate between Utsarga and Apavada. So, when we refine our understanding of Purvatra Siddham, we realize that it is not like Sutra versus Sutra, it is more like Prakarana versus Prakarana. So, within a small Prakarana, say Hakara gets different kinds of Adeshas. So, there is Hodhaha and its Apavada Sutras. So, they are all one set. So, there is no Asiddhatva within that family. So, the Utsarga and Apavadas, all Apavadas are Siddha to Utsarga and they will operate in the same way. That is, the Apavada will overrule the Utsarga even within the Tripadi. So in the next session, we will see a few more exceptions to Purvatra Siddham. येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्. Okay. Any questions?